So thank you very much for being here. My name is Caleb Hogan. I'm a first-year MBA student at MIT Sloan. In this year's first pitch case competition, as stated before, focused on an expansion strategy for an MLS team on their ticketing and stadium strategy. We had over 20 submissions and cut it down to the 3 finalists who are here today. And those finalists are from the Darden School of Business, Harvard Business School, and a mixed team from Ross at University of Michigan and McCombs at UT. The presentation will be in the format of 20 minutes per presentation with 10 minutes of Q&A from our judges, and presentations will be judged on creativity, thoughtfulness of response, and the presentation itself. Our panel of 5 judges all have various sports experience, so I would like to introduce them first. First, we have Charlie Shin, VP of Strategy and Analytics at Major League Soccer. We have Michael Larimore, Director of Ticket Strategy and Revenue at Eventellect. We have Braden Moore, Senior Director of Strategy and Analytics at Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment. We have Sam Ebb, the VP of Business Strategy and Analytics at Comcast Spectator, and Dave Jacobs, VP of Strategy and Planning at PTC. So without further ado, Darden, you are up first.
Thanks. Over here. All right, good. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today to discuss our proposed approach to Mlsville FC's stadium and fan engagement strategy. My name is Angus McIntyre, and I'm here with my colleagues Alex Goot and Sam Warner. So today we'd like to walk you through a high-level overview of our approach to Mlsville's ticketing and stadium strategy. We'll go through a couple of the details around dynamic ticket pricing, stadium ticket benefits, season ticket benefits, and so on. And then actually follow that up with a breakdown of the MLS's fan demographics. And the reason for that is that actually really helped inform a couple of decisions that we wanted to make, including the season ticket benefits and the stadium amenities, as well as our initial marketing and distribution strategy for ticketing, which we'll get to towards the end. Now, after that, we'll go into a Q&A, but please feel free to shout out any questions throughout the presentation if they pop up. So over the past few weeks, we've been asked to research 3 main questions for Mlsville FC as the team looks to establish itself in the MLS. These are, appropriately sizing the capacity of the venue itself, determining the optimal mix of premium, supporter, and general or non-premium tickets, and then also segmenting tickets based on season tickets, group tickets, and individual ticket sales. In addition to those considerations, we wanted to bring up 4 others that we think are vital in helping Mlsville FC develop its strategy for the upcoming season. We looked at dynamic ticket pricing and how this can help maximize revenues for the team. We looked at benefits for season ticket holders and engaging fans, season ticket holders, and general admission alike on and after game day. And then lastly, with, as I said before, initial ticket marketing and distribution strategy. We believe that bringing these 4 considerations together along with our proposed strategy for the 3 main questions that you posed to us really constitute a very holistic strategy for Mlsville FC that we believe can be implemented for this season. So if you think about the rise of the internet and digital strategies that are employed by marketers today, you can imagine that consumers are faced with an overabundance of decisions like never before. They're being provided an unprecedented amount of information and choices in making their purchasing decisions. Now, there's plenty of research out there that actually shows that this overabundance of information actually decreases a consumer's willingness to make a purchase in the moment, so they'll actually delay that purchase or actually sometimes abandon it altogether. And this is a major problem for the ticketing marketplace. There is no exception to that rule. So, for example, if you take a look over here at the stadium on the left, a sample stadium from a current MLS team, you can see that there's an overabundance of very small segmented sections with a high number of ticket segments. In addition, the stadium layout is not optimal when you think about sight lines for consumers. And overall, this complexity causes a lot of frustration, as I mentioned before, which can really hurt ticket sales. We wanted to ease the heartbreak or this heartache for Mlsville FC's fans as they look to purchase tickets when they come to our stadium. We wanted to do this in three ways. The first was to simplify the seating structure, as you see over here, to larger sections where there's less differentiation. This allows consumers to very quickly and easily make purchasing decisions online or even on day of at the stadium, and sort of drives that revenue faster. Second, we simplified the ticket pricing structure to actually just three structures, with an optional fourth on high-demand game days, where we can actually convert this party deck over here to an additional 5,000 seats to increase the capacity by 25%. This allows consumers to make their decisions quickly and fans to make their decisions quickly, but it also allows us to, on the back end, still differentiate ticket prices enough to maximize the revenue for the team. Now, with these two strategies, the last one that we wanted to implement around the stadium was actually around excuse me, sorry. Around the actual game day experience, for fans in general. So what we found when we looked at recent MLS expansion teams is that fans really want an intimate experience, and this is really driven by the size of the venue itself. Smaller venues actually allow a higher proportion of really avid fans to attend games, and this in turn drives really, really dynamic, really energetic game day experiences for the fans that are attending the game. Now, to do this, we've proposed capping the overall capacity of the stadium for Mlsville FC to 20,000 seats, with that additional 5,000 seats that I mentioned earlier, to enable sort of flexing with high demand games, such as when teams come to town with star power, or local rivalries that we want to be able to maximize the revenue for. So to dive into that a little bit further, I'm going to pass it off to Sam.
Thanks, Angus. Now the next step is taking that 20,000 and dividing it up, as Angus was mentioning, between supporter seating, premium seating, and general seating. As you can see here, our choice was to go with 17% premium seating, 3,450, 18% supporter seating, 3,650, with the remainder going to general seating. These 17 and 18% were based on industry comps, which we found for premium seating was around 12 to 15% of overall attendance. Supporter seating, again, around 15% of overall attendance. We chose to bump that up a little bit because we believe the market is moving in a direction where fans want a more tailored, personalized experience, whether that's on the premium end, mentioned up here, or on the supporter end, where they want to be, in the mix, in that raucous environment. So we want to provide more of those experiences to our fans, with obviously the party deck, expanded supporter seating, which I'll get to in a second. The second choice we had to make was on terms of price, looking at what price points we wanted. Again, we studied industry comps and came up with these ranges that you see here for the various sections, based on, and you can see their ranges based on what we're going to call our Tier 1 through Tier 3 games. Tier 1, the high demand games, those are the prices at the high end. There's a Tier 2, obviously, and then Tier 3 is sort of the bottom end, so we can adjust for what we project demand for these various games to be. Now, these prices are supposed to be anchor averages, so for the premium seating, for instance, you have a lot of different choices there. There's field-sized suites, regular in-stand suites, and then your traditional luxury suites at the top of the stadium. You can price those higher, lower, give fans that premium experience that they really want, anchored around these price points, which allow it to be accessible to all fans who want this type of experience. Finally, as Angus mentioned, we have our party deck, which we're really excited about. On one end of the stadium, we propose having a low-lying, flat surface that for most games could be sort of a social space. You could have bars, kids' activities, areas for fans to gather. There's even a potential to sell standing room tickets at a lower price point to further increase revenue for these games. But for the high-demand games, those games where there's a big atmosphere, Zlatan's in town, Rooney's in town, there's a big local rivalry, we propose bringing in 5,000 extra temporary seats to add expanded supporter seating, increase the atmosphere, and like Angus was saying, really give fans that MLS exciting atmosphere that they come to games for. I mentioned earlier, we're going to have variable pricing models with 3 tiers of games on the schedule. We did some research and saw that the three factors that really drive MLS attendance are star power, team performance, and local rivalries. You can see on this chart, it's 2x2 on the left, or on the y-axis is the average road attendance impact, and so that is when this team is in town, how much does the home team's attendance go up on average? Unsurprisingly, LA Galaxy, sort of the flagship team in MLS, one of the big drivers of road attendance. You can also see DC United, New York Red Bull, NYCFC, and LAFC, your big market teams. Those are the ones that really drive attendance. And so those would be our Tier 1 games based on last season, in addition to MLSville FC's local rival, whoever that ends up being. You see a middle band there that runs from sort of FC Cincinnati to Atlanta United. Those would be your Tier 2 games. And then the bottom left would be your Tier 3 games, which we would project as lower demand. Again, this fluctuates from season to season, obviously, depending on how teams perform, and could be readjusted. These are based on 2019 standings and road attendance. One important aspect of this as well is that season tickets would be priced variably as well. This is an important factor that the consumer actually probably doesn't see much of at all. They would still pay the same amount, still get the same great benefits of being a season ticket holder, but when they're billed for it and on their tickets, they would have different price points for each tier of games. The reason this is important is because it gives us greater flexibility with our individual game sales. One of the biggest problems that teams face when dealing with season versus individual is they want to flexibly price their individuals, but feel they can't go below the season ticket price point for fear of alienating their season ticket holders. Just variably pricing the season tickets so that season ticket holders know the value of each game individually allows us to be more flexible with our individual games, create more demand, get more fans in the stadium. The third tool of this is our dynamic pricing model, which we'd implement for later season games to allow us to sort of react to things in real time. Like I said, team performance is a big driver of attendance in MLS. And so later in the season, maybe there's a great story out there. Maybe Sporting Kansas City is having a great season and drawing a lot of fans into the building. The dynamic model would allow us to react to that in real time and price our tickets at a better price point to increase our revenue later in the season. We'd propose having a dynamic pricing model that has pretty low sensitivity early on to allow our fans to really get in on these Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 games, but gets higher and higher sensitivity as the season goes on. So once we get to that end of the season, the MLS Cup race, as MLSville FC is undoubtedly in the hunt for the MLS Cup, we can sort of capture the maximum revenue for those late season exciting games. Of course, here's the most important part, the dollars and cents of it all. We ran through three scenarios, a bull case, a base case, and a bear case, to estimate what our per game revenue would be from ticket sales. For the bull case, we took the top third of MLS attendance, which was 103% on average. The base case was MLS average, which was 86% last season, and the bear case was 72%, which was the bottom third of MLS attendance. Just looking at the base case, you can see that most of our revenue is coming from the general and premium seating sales, with supporter sales making up the sort of bottom part of that. The base case you can see with the expanded supporter section, based on our model of the 17 home games, we would have one sellout, presumably the home opener where we sold all 25,000 seats. That's great. Maybe another game where we're up at like 22, 23,000, again over that capacity using the expanded section, and that brings in some additional revenue there. The other important element of this slide, obviously, is the target ticket product mix. We were hoping for 60% season tickets with the 15 and 25% for group and single game. These are based on industry standards, sort of what we researched, what teams were going for. The 60% for season tickets, that's obviously variable. It depends on how our season ticket sales go. If we go higher, I don't think we would want to go much higher than 70 or 75%, because while we want to build a season ticket base and get those fans in, get them locked in, be hardcore MLSville FC fans, we also, as a new expansion team, want to make sure there's plenty of single game and group inventory available so we can get more fans in to more games, expand our fan base even further. And with that, I'm going to hand things over to Alex, and he's going to talk about our season ticket strategy and our marketing strategy.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Sam, and hello, everyone. And yeah, we're going to move on a little bit to kind of going beyond just the numbers and the quantitative side, which are obviously important, and looking a little bit at some of the benefits to season tickets that we want to offer for MLSville FC. And our approach in thinking about this and thinking about the value that we want to generate for the fans is staying very conscious of the fact that in 2020, you have to deliver much more than simply a viewing experience when it comes to a season ticket. Obviously, a great perspective on the game, having a wonderful view of what's going on the pitch, that's something that's available to viewers at home nowadays, whether it's through HD 4K television, surround sound, cloud, innovations in virtual reality, all of the above. And so we really wanted to approach this as a season ticket that was not simply going to deliver that viewing experience, but was going to bring the fans into the community itself. And with that in mind, we sort of broke our features, if you will, that we'll be offering in the season ticket into kind of two buckets: increased access for the fans themselves, and then ways to reduce the cost of the game day experience. So when it comes to access, as you'll see, we really wanted to emphasize the notion that a season ticket to Mlsville FC makes you a part of a community, helps you connect with fellow fans, gives you access that others may not have, and we accomplish that through player meet and greets, through a special fan newsletter that we hope to offer to our season ticket holders, dedicated checkout lines for those that we know are the firm strongest supporters of the team, and first access to, as Sam referenced earlier, the MLS Cup playoffs as Mlsville makes its push in that regard. Similarly, when it comes to reducing the cost for the fans, looking at specific discounts that we can offer, whether it's a markdown for additional single game tickets if our season ticket holders want to bring friends and family and colleagues, and specifically another important piece of the value proposition, access to a marketplace that allows fans to resell unused tickets if there are particular parts of the season that they cannot attend. And so we very much, with all of this in mind, tried to sort of appeal to a motto that a supporter is more than just a spectator, and we want everyone that's in attendance for Mlsville FC to feel like they're a part of the team and a part of the community, because that's really what has differentiated MLS in the sports market today. And talking about those supporters, we wanted to take some time to just make sure we really identified who they are. And so we dove into the research on who currently makes up the MLS fan, the MLS consumer, and unsurprisingly sort of found that it really resembles the American sports fan today: young, diverse, cutting across a lot of different lines. The MLS fan base, while slightly skewed male, there's certainly a great deal of interest in soccer for both males and females in the United States. It currently has the youngest fan base in all of U.S. sports. As you can see there, about 60% of the fan base under the age of 45. And it's an international sport and an international game. And so, as you might expect, 42% of Hispanics identify themselves as MLS fans here in the United States. And it's a participation-based game. 12 million or so soccer participants, outdoor soccer participants in the United States. And so with all of this in mind, we really wanted to think about, okay, knowing our fan base, knowing these supporters, what's the best way to drive the game day experience? And knowing that we have a young, diverse fan base, one that's lived in the digital space, our game day experience, it was really important for us to make sure that it all revolved around the app that we are designing for MLS FC season ticket holders and supporters. That app sort of becomes the hub that drives our fans' experience throughout game day. And so we broke that into sort of three phases. Before the game, push notifications that can help the fans know transportation times, what the best routes are to the game, what the current availability is for mass transit, things along those lines. Information on bars and restaurants, local businesses that might be offering discounts on game day and tied to the experiences, and also a loyalty program that we could introduce that'll allow even further discounts for Mlsville FC fans. In the stadium itself, again, the app is central to everything. From the moment that you arrive, for the moment that you get into your seat, the app is where you conduct voting for in-stadium experiences, the songs that are played on the loudspeaker, answering trivia questions. Additionally, as the sports gambling and betting space continues to crank up, the app becomes a centralized link to the opportunity to bet on and make your selections for what you think is going to unfold out on the field for Mlsville FC. And then similarly, after the game, we continue the process sort of using machine learning, sort of using our production capabilities and highlights to be able to drive highlights and fan experiences that are catered to specific fans and their favorite players. Thank you messages that come from your favorite Mlsville star that's driven by surveys and data that we've collected on who your favorites are and which players you connect with. So the idea is that from the start of the day and through to the end, we are constantly driving a fan's engagement and commitment to Mlsville FC. And so finally, just wanted to take a little time on our marketing and distribution strategy for rolling this out. And we very much designed this to allow Mlsville FC to focus on where they can add the most value, focus on their specialty, which again is their local team. And so with that in mind, we wanted to leverage MLS's existing partner, SeatGeek, the official ticketing vendor of the league, sort of let them handle the actual operations, the nuts and bolts, the management of the ticket program itself. And the idea there is to allow MLSville FC to focus on specific fan giveaways and promotions and direct marketing strategies. And a lot of these are obviously familiar to everyone in the live sports space, but again, we really wanted to keep in mind and design a strategy where these promotions tend to roll out for the games that have lower support, maybe the during the week games, the teams that don't have the same sort of international star power. We really want to drive community and fan engagement in those games with messages targeted at children and the young fan base, the possibility of doing birthday messages, celebration areas, those sorts of things that can kind of offer another activation for these low demand games. So that is basically our strategy and sort of how we thought about both the quantitative and qualitative aspects of building this fan base and building a community for MLS FC. And with that, myself and Angus and Sam would be happy to take any questions that anyone has.
I'll start. First of all, congratulations. Thank you you guys put together a great presentation, great strategy. I did want to ask about the thought of increasing capacity for some of the games. Did you think about how adding standing room only tickets at most likely a cheaper price might devalue seats in the rest of the venue?
Yeah, we did consider that, and that's one of the reasons that we're sort of, for most of the games, the 20,000 seat capacity games where we don't propose adding the extra temporary seating, we think standing room's an option. We don't think it should be central to MLSville FC strategy, precisely for the reason that you mentioned. We believe our supporter tickets are very affordably priced for fans that want to come to games, below that $20 price point for some of the games, and so it's an option to explore, but I think we would probably err towards the side of make sure we sell our existing inventory of normal seats, and then if we have to bring in the extra seats, then we would add that expanded capacity.
Thanks.
That was a very thoughtful presentation. Just a quick question in terms of considering that this is a new franchise coming into the market, and it might be a case where there might not be a high visibility or awareness of the clubs. What is the primary goal of this club as they're coming into the new? Is it about driving revenues, or is it about building the fan base? What is the current goal you guys have set?
Yeah, I would say, and the way that we sort of approach this, and certainly as we sort of looked at MLS and what differentiates the league in the sports marketplace, I think for all of us, it kept coming back to the notion of community and fandom. When you see the teams in MLS that have had the most success, the Portland Timbers, Vancouver Whitecaps, everybody up in the Pacific Northwest, it's really about, again, the energy, the crowd passion, feeling like you are a part of what's also going to happen on that field. And so while obviously driving revenue through our ticketing models was a priority and we wanted to think about the numbers, we also really wanted to keep in mind that the reason the MLS has had so much success in live attendance, arguably they're sort of pioneering there and now trying to figure out the television piece and some of the other media rights. But I think the live attendance success has come because it is such a unique game day experience right now. It feels like the cool club. It feels like the sort of young and hip place to be, I think, in the sports marketplace. And so we wanted to maintain that by making sure that, again, we didn't sort of do a stadium that was over capacity. We wanted to make sure that we maintained really strong sight lines and visibility, but we also wanted to integrate the app and a lot of our sort of digital activations to make sure the fan experience was as strong as possible.
Well, that's a great value proposition. How do you get that messages out? Because a lot of the things that you guys talked about was at the bottom of the funnel, and pricing obviously is determined by the supply and demand, and we have a very set number of supplies. So how do you tackle that top of the funnel demands in the market?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think a lot of it comes down to potentially, again, as MLSville comes on board and we sort of learn more about who the media partners are going to be, who the sort of local partnerships that we can cut. I think it's driving with local sportscasters, with local media, to make sure that the word is out potentially, again, depending on the market. If we're in a market here where there's not currently that big professional sports footprint that maybe doesn't have the NBA or NFL team, letting them know that now this is the option for that live experience and that they can come here to enjoy it.
And in addition to that, I think Alex is totally right. In addition to that, I think we want to leverage, we don't have a whole lot of information on Mlsville as a city right now or its population, but leveraging the local celebrity base as well to really get the word out. So you think about LA where they have Will Ferrell at every game banging a drum, you have David Beckham in Miami. We want to try and leverage that same model for Mlsville FC. So we will definitely try to hit on sort of the local populace to leverage that. I think this is a league similar to, say, the NBA, where it's a star-driven league. You have like the top striker in the league in Atlanta, Zlatan, who obviously left LA, but who's there driving a lot of the interest in these games. So we want to keep that trend going for Mlsville.
Thank you.
I have a question going back to your guys' seating chart. Are you looking at simplifying the number of sections or the number of price points? And if you're looking at the number of sections, how do you balance, your example on the left has double the number of sections going across, which means there's double the amount of ingress and egress, double the amount of aisles. And if it is then price points, how do you balance the pricing differentiation of the last row of premium seating versus, being double the price of the first row of the section next over?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the key point there is we plan on differentiating the number of sections rather than price points primarily. It's an excellent point on the aisles and the ingress and egress. I think we would obviously work with local authorities, the fire chief, making sure that our stadium is safe, efficient, the best strategies for getting fans in and out, but also sort of maintaining those big groups of fans together to provide that communal experience, allow them to celebrate. From the price point perspective, I think our strategy would be to have single sections with slightly varying price points within each one. We don't want to create a drastic difference, but obviously there is a difference in value between the front row of a section and the last row of a section. And so, and I think fans understand that when they're making their ticket purchase. What we want to avoid is fans being sort of inundated with, do I want Diamond Premium 1 versus Sapphire Premium 2 when they're looking at a seating chart. We want it to be simple. You want general admission. Here are the seats available. Obviously, there's great technology available with our partner SeatGeek for fans to choose their individual seats. And from there, we can differentiate on price point a little bit.
So is that then a pricing strategy question, or is that a buy flow question to solve?
I think it's a pricing strategy question primarily of how do we differentiate, and something we would obviously look at moving forward is how do we differentiate the front row of the section from the last row of the section, the corners from the sidelines. We don't want too much variance. I think we want to really streamline everything as much as possible, but also obviously provide the value for the seats that are there.
So you took most of my question, but I'm gonna continue to pull on that thread a little bit. As you're thinking about the fill of the stadium, so think about your tier 3 game where your attendance projection is lower. If you're maintaining relative price parity as you go from close to the center of the pitch to behind the goal, what's your thinking around how that may or may not lead to empty sections? So if the prices are close, people are gonna gravitate towards the middle and the front, and then the optics of having full empty sections behind the goal or the corners is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that we'd be concerned about. I think we could strategize where making sure that we get fans, in the corner specifically, price those areas so we can get fans in the lower areas. I think actually it'd be a strength of our stadium to have fans gravitating in towards the lower center sections where primarily, that's where most of the TV focus is. And then obviously having our supporter section behind the goal, we expect a committed, constant presence there that'll provide the atmosphere even for those lower tier games to sort of round out the overall stadium atmosphere around the pitch.
Guess I get the last one by default. So thanks for the presentation, guys. One of the things I was intrigued by is the idea of engagement with the fan base. And when I think about my own experiences in MLS stadiums, I think about the Timbers, Atlanta United, places where maybe not a star-driven market, driven by heavy supporter engagement, heavy engagement with the community. When I saw some of this, I was curious what drove the programs that you have. How do you know what these supporters will want in your community, or are these just things you've seen other teams do and you're going to test it?
Yeah, so what we showed, I think it was on the second to last slide there, that was sort of the laundry list of all the things we'd want to consider. We would absolutely want to do some concept testing, some stress testing with the local fan base, working with maybe the fans that we expect to be the most avid, so that we make sure we get that core group of supporters to buy the season tickets, make sure we're tailoring to the people who are going to be, the most avid supporters of the team. And then from there, expanding, the availability of different discounts, different promos, different fan experiences to the rest of the populace of the city. There are a bunch of reports out there about sort of how digital is augmenting the stadium experience, and of course, AR and VR is all the rage right now. But we would of course look at that as well. But we would want to do a lot of our stress testing specifically with our market, because there are, to your point, there are plenty of very rabid fan bases that are not driven by star power. So what is it about those experiences, doing our research into those cities, what is it about those experiences that really make that fan base as rabid as it is?
And I would just add very briefly, just to sort of piggyback off that, I think the idea also is that while we did want to look to some of the peer teams and other MLS franchises for ideas in this jumping off point, part of the benefit and the idea of sort of driving everything through this team app is also that it can be an iterative process, and we can continue to collect data through the inaugural season about what areas we want to move forward on.
Up next, we have the team from Harvard Business School.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christine, this is Kyle, and this is Sushan, and today we're here to talk about our strategy for our stadium and ticketing. So in creating our stadium and ticketing strategy, we had two main goals in mind. The first is to maximize attendance, and the second is to maximize ticketing revenue. And we thought about this in two main ways. So we thought about this from the short term, and we thought about this from the long term as well. So in the short term, our vision is to build a mid-sized split-level stadium with about 22,500 seats of total capacity. And we want to use a value-based pricing model. So we're focused in the short term on growing attendance, really driving our supporter base forward, and really using that to drive stadium utilization. In the longer term, we envision growing and maintaining that avid fan base and really optimizing our pricing and inventory based on that increased demand. So being able to use that to drive utilization, drive our stadium memberships upwards, as well as our ticket pricing. We envision that successful execution of this strategy will generate about $12.5 million in year one of our operation, growing 6% year over year to $22.5 million by year 10. So a quick intro to Aliceville FC. Based on the population data that we were given, as well as the selection criteria for a typical MLS team, we made a few assumptions. So first off, we assume that right now Aliceville has a USL team that's fairly successful with a very strong fan base. They currently play an average size USL stadium that we can then, but we will be building a new stadium that is better suited for the MLS team itself. We also used 4 MLS comparables based on this population data, the first being Columbus Crew, the second being the Portland Timbers, Colorado Rapids, and DC United. We thought that they were the best comparables for us to benchmark off of, and this is actually a lot of the crux of our analysis. So I'm going to hand it off to Sushan now.
So the first thing that we really wanted to do is figure out what was the right size stadium for us. We looked at utilization, market size, demographics, team performance, and found no significant correlation with attendance and capacity utilization. What we did find was that there was a significant correlation between fan engagement and capacity utilization. So we think the best thing to do was to determine our capacity was benchmark to other existing MLS venues. We analyzed historical MLS attendance, and we found that split-level stadiums with around 20 to 25,000 seats optimized for capacity and utilization. So I think the crux of our thesis is that utilization is highly correlated with the fan engagement and the stadium experience. And so in order to build the right size stadium, we would rather have a 25,000 seat stadium with 95% utilization versus a 32,000 seat venue with a 75% utilization. Although they yield similar gross attendance, the atmosphere will drive fan engagement as well as the ability to price later on which we'll talk about. So what we've decided is a 22,500 seat stadium with approximately 1,500 of flex standing room only seating for high profile matches. This will allow us to increase the attendance if we get a superstar in town or we're moving towards the MLS playoffs. But in addition, we will also look to have a plan to build 5,000 additional seats in the upper level of the North Stand for approximately $40 million. This is something that's been done by MLS teams, specifically in Portland and Toronto, and it's also planned for Minnesota and LAFC. So the ability to, as we see attendance grow, flex this. When we think about our customers, it's important for us to know who our customers are and how we can best meet their needs. We divided our customers into 5 different segments: soccer enthusiasts, avid general sports fans, the corporate community, families, and casual sports fans. Based on the characteristics of each of these segments, we think that it's important to primarily drive purchasing by soccer enthusiasts and avid general sports fans. This will help create an atmosphere that will then filter down to the other corporate communities. And it's also our near-term sales priority. We believe that if we engage these two core sectors of our fan base, we'll enhance the fan atmosphere and therefore convert the corporate community, families, and casual sports fans to soccer enthusiasts over time. When we think about pricing and pricing and our pricing strategy, we wanted to create a fair price for our fans. So let's double click onto these 2 charts. On the left, we have pricing benchmarking for MLS teams. In the supporter section, midfield lower, and premium upper. And we looked at MLS teams, the average across the entire league, as well as our comp group average. When we think about our comp groups, we have two specific types of comps within our comp group. We have DC United and Portland Timbers, which have been, Portland Timbers, you have one of the most successful teams with high demand, which is driving our average pricing up, as well as DC United, who opened a new stadium, also driving our price up. In addition, we have Colorado and Columbus, who have struggled to meet the demand in the market, have struggled with demand in the market, and so therefore they're bringing our pricing down. So net, where we fall out is approximately around the average of MLS teams, slightly higher premium pricing. On the right side, we have our long-term pricing strategy and how we think about pricing going forward. In the short term, what we want to do is to price at a lower price point such that we can maximize stadium utilization, build a fan base, and increase the atmosphere such that we're filling the building every day, and slowly increasing prices in line with inflation. After that, we'll have the ability to drive higher gate prices over time as we build our success in the market. So what does this all mean? What we want to do is based on the pricing strategy and our capacity, maximize the value to the customers in an easy to understand way. And what we've shown here is a ticketing rate card for non-premium and premium sections. What's important is that the membership prices are the average of the comp group and then scaled by the average ratios of season ticket prices between comparable seating inventory across different MLS franchises. What we do for single game pricing is use a dynamic model that floats with the secondary market but is banded between a price floor and a price ceiling. We're going to work with an official distribution partner for secondary sales and structure a deal where we would work to get 50% of the fees accrued from those real-time ticket sales. And specifically for the pricing of cup competitions such as US Open Cup, CONCACAF Champions League, is to use a low single price to drive fan acquisition, to get fans in the door who may not necessarily be involved in season memberships. And therefore, we can fill our stadium with fans who don't necessarily come to games that often. And at the later stage rounds, price towards tier 1 pricing strategy. Now I'll turn it over to Kyle to talk about a little bit more of our premium options.
Thanks, Sean. So we know that the modern fan is looking for a variety of viewing experiences at a variety of price points, and our stadium has them in spades, providing unique viewing experiences and functional spaces in a variety of different ways to our fans. So our Raptor Club level is split into 2 spaces, the Claw level, which is a more of a cocktail lounge vibe and focused on our corporate customers, and also has 2 large meeting spaces that are available for people to host functions pre and post game, and seated dining options. Our Fang level, contrarily, is more of a sports bar vibe, but targeted at more families and avid sports fans who are looking for a slightly elevated experience. There's 100+ TVs, and also our broadcast booth for our TV broadcast will be located there so fans can view that and engage with our TV personalities. While we will have a suite level, there will be nothing stale or traditional about it. We will have multiple capacities that are available to satisfy different demand, 10, 20, and 30-person suites. There will also be digitally ordered food, and not only will we have retractable plexiglass that can protect our fans from the elements, but will also enable our suites to easily convert into conference rooms, lounges, or even state-of-the-art karaoke entertainment booths for pre, post, and in-game entertainment. Our premium field club levels will have two different options. The Tunnel Club will be focused more on your premium season member, and it will, in two walls will actually be completely see-through, so people can see our players travel from the locker room to the stadium, and also have all-inclusive F&B. The corner clubs, located in each corner, will focus more on our corporate customers and have regular appearances by the front office and team ambassadors so that our corporate partners can engage with them. And we, of course, will not forget about our socially driven fans with two different party patios. The Nest Beer Garden, located at the end zone on the first level, with rotating local beer and wine options and assigned seats for all guests. And also for our socially driven, more price-sensitive customers, we'll have our 12th man party patio on level 2, with the most beer taps per seat of anywhere in the stadium for those socially driven fans. Another thing that we need to consider is also how do we actually get these tickets into the hands of our customers. So we recognize that what we want to drive is the majority of our sales to our primary ticketing platform, that there will be leakage that occurs to the secondary market and to the brokerage market. And we recognize that there is revenue to be had at all of these different levels, but what we do lose is we lose a share of the revenue, and we also lose the ability to kind of know who is in our building and capture that customer data. So we're going to try to minimize that as much as possible at all levels. But not only having a primary ticketing partner, but a secondary ticketing partner, 100% digitally enabled tickets that are NFC enabled as well, so tap and go into the stadium, to try to make sure that we have a relationship with these people who are selling the tickets in the secondary market so that we have the ability to also capture that customer data, and then negotiate relationships with large brokers in the area too, to also, again, keep that customer data as much as we possibly can and minimize that leakage. Now, how are we going to drive people to utilize the primary market most of the time is evolve the season ticket package to a 21st century model. So what does this mean? Not one-time annual payments that have a lot of sticker shock with limited benefits, but monthly payments on a subscription model that reduces the sticker shock price from an annual basis, and also a suite of benefits, both in stadium and out of stadium. So exclusive concessions, promotions for people who are season members, private entrances, private lounges when they're there, complimentary parking from an in-stadium and game day perspective, but also out of stadium. So 2 times on our Raptor Rewards loyalty program for all purchases, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Additionally, first access to non-soccer events, and also discounts on partner products outside of the stadium when utilizing and showing proof of membership. Really driving towards our ultimate goal of 76% season membership ticket sales.
All right, so when we put this all together, when we put our ticketing, our pricing, our inventory strategy, along with our fan engagement strategy all together, what can we expect in terms of revenue? So this chart here shows the average gross ticketing revenue on a per game basis. We expect that in our first year, we'll make about $1 million per game, growing about 5 or 6% year over year to about $1.8 million by the time we reach year 10. A few things to note, this is primarily driven by the bottom rows here, season ticket membership increasing, capacity utilization within our stadium increasing, as well as a gradual increase in our ticket price based on demand. When we think about this in a like-for-like basis with some of the data that we were given, when you look at the $1 million, excluding some of the food and beverage costs associated with premium, this is about $800,000, which puts us right in line with the typical average game revenue for a like 25 to 30,000 capacity stadium. So I mentioned this briefly before, but our strategy is really based on a 4-phased approach. At phase 1, we're really focused on laying down the foundation. So this is where we actually envision ourselves today as a USL team. Things that we'll need to think about here are really maintaining low prices to drive ticket volume in the near term, to really boost efforts within the community and become kind of a staple within the community itself, and really investing in local marketing to enhance our fan acquisition efforts. The next is phase 1, which will be building our fan base. So that means building our membership base, establishing a wait list, as well as really scaling our sales team to match that effort. We'll also focus on getting paid tickets into the system, as well as mobilizing some of our supporters into really active advocates. In phase 2, this is kind of 4 or 5 years down the line, we're looking to evolve into the intra-market leader. So we expect MLSville to have a few other potential professional teams, collegiate teams in the area. We'll really look to begin to optimize our inventory and really compete against them using our rate card. We'll also begin to phase in ticket price increases based on the increasing demand. And in phase 3, this is where we look at ourselves in maturity. So really growing that fan base, generating a lot of demand with our ticketing, and really using some more systematic price increases and targeting some of our more high margin items as well.
Thank you. All right, so as Christine mentioned, we really envision our stadium and ticketing strategy as part of a larger fan engagement and fan ecosystem, which we consider and we call the fan's journey. So we looked at this in 3 different stages and making sure that we are adequately addressing all 3 stages and engaging with our fan along all steps of those journey. So step 1 is in-game or near the stadium. So we need to make sure that we are building an atmosphere, as we talked about, because that's the primary driver of capacity utilization and revenue, is do you have an avidly engaged fan base? So creating fan rituals and making sure that we have in-game entertainment and also even theme nights, things that just get general excitement around the stadium. But beyond that, creating that stadium atmosphere is also just the logistics and the functionality of the stadium as well. So making sure that people are getting in and out of the stadium efficiently, making sure that we are minimizing the carbon footprint of our stadium and operating on a sustainable basis. And also just the in-game media, making sure that we're cutting edge and we're providing people with a unique and customized experience throughout. So pre and post game, we want to make sure that we get people to our site and near our site and into the stadium as early as possible to make sure that we can maximize on all revenue opportunities and really provide them a comprehensive experience throughout on game day. So things like 90 before the 90 tailgate events and discounts on F&B pre-game to get people into the stadium earlier, but also making sure that we're positioning and locating our stadium in a convenient place from a public transportation standpoint and close to local entertainment and restaurant opportunities for pre and post-game entertainment for our fans. And then the final step of the journey is non-game day. So making sure that we just have a comprehensive media plan on O&O platforms, distributed platforms with social media partners, also making sure that we have a streaming partner to make sure that our games are getting to people, and just really making sure that people have the opportunity to consume Raptor content 24/7, 365 days a year, and just an opportunity to engage with our team and become more and more avid fans. Also just dedicated community engagement and social impact programs, and making sure that we have a wide menu of away game and off-season events that are driving continuous engagement and continuous top-of-mindness for our team. Underpinning all of these 3 stages of a fan's journey is technology, so making sure that we are maximizing current and emerging technologies, capturing as much customer data as we can, and making sure that we are both capturing and re-delivering content to our fans on a 24/7 basis. All with the ultimate goal of investing in data-driven, fan-oriented solutions that elevate the experience, drive engagement, and ultimately allow us to know our fan through all aspects of the fan's journey. So one part that we're really excited about is the Wrap, which is an omni-channel connected fan experience. So this is our mobile app that's really going to address all aspects of that fan's journey like we mentioned. So just walking through a few highlights from a fintech perspective. 100% digital payments within the stadium on everything from F&B, from a merch perspective, paying for parking. Also, enabled via mobile wallet and split the check capabilities between fans. So if somebody wants to go buy a round of beers, they can easily split it in stadium with like a Venmo type functionality. But this also allows us to capture purchase behavior. So it's efficient for the fan, but we can capture what our fans are buying in the stadium and iterate consistently. From a transportation perspective, pushing real-time alerts on what traffic looks like so people can get to and into the stadium more efficiently, but also allowing us to capture data on the movement patterns of our fans so that we can optimize our logistics. From a content delivery perspective, really blowing out customized mobile content dashboards for our fans based on what they engage with most and pieces of content they view the most, delivering them with next-gen stats, and real-time mobile replays. Moving to the top right, digital ticketing. We've talked about this, but allowing fans to efficiently and easily transfer tickets between each other if they can't attend a game, but remaining within our digital ecosystem so that we can truly try to track who's in our stadium. Pending legal approval, of course, we'll lean into sports betting and establish a primary sports betting operator that will push, deposit discounts and exclusive in-game games and prop bets to only people who are at our stadium, providing a really unique experience. In concessions, we know that managing concessions demands is an extremely challenging task for any stadium. So we're going to try to minimize that, the challenge of that task by pushing discounts on things where sales might be slow, or also allowing fans to vote on what they'd like to see next at certain locally driven stadiums. Underpinning all of this will be an Instagram-like slider bar after every interaction, gauging whether the customer was pleased or satisfied with their experience, so we can really see if fans are enjoying the experience. And each transaction will contribute to the Raptor Rewards loyalty program, which will provide perceived benefit for our fans, but ultimately driving more transactions and increasing rev per cap as we move on in our franchise's life cycle.
So as we mentioned before, our key strategic goals are to maximize attendance and to maximize ticket revenue. We're going to do this both in the short term and the long term by building a 22,500 seat stadium using value-based pricing, and in the long term, growing an avid fan base and optimizing pricing and inventory. Although we believe this is a comprehensive strategy, we recognize that there are potential risks, such as subpar on-field performance, introduction of new teams to the market, compressed timeline for the stadium, macroeconomic downturns, and others. We feel that in building our strategy and executing our strategy, we've considered these risks and we feel comfortable with the base case scenario and where we are moving forward. So how do we move forward? What are the next steps for MLSville? First, we need to engage with existing franchises and other professional teams to source best practices and understand what are other teams doing in the market, what is successful, and what is working. We need plan approval for the site and the stadium design and construction, as well as understanding that the fans have as much say about the stadium design and they want to feel included within the process. We're going to build out a sales and marketing organization to help sell to fans and start the process of building a fan base. And lastly, we want to partner with community leaders to execute a grassroots effort to grow and support a local fan base. With that, we'll open it up to questions. Thank you very much.
I'll start off. Kudos to the team. This is great work. Not only were you guys able to use some qualitative analysis, but also a lot of the quantitative analysis and very strategic approach. If there was a golden ticket, I would actually press it and give you guys the awards, but unfortunately there isn't one. But with that said, I have two questions. One is, love to hear the story behind that logo, the Raptors, why you guys came up with that. The second question I had was on your pricing strategy. You guys compared it against other MLS clubs. But if I'm a fan in Denver, I'm not competing with any other MLS clubs, right? I'm competing with the Avalanche and the Rockies. Are we leaving any money on the table because we're comparing against other MLS clubs?
I'll start with the easy question. I would say I kind of forced this on the team. I'm a bit of a dinosaur junkie, and I thought there was a lot of opportunity for us to get creative around it with kind of the names of our different seating sections, our mobile application, and it's just kind of a fun way for us to really humanize this project and try to think about this as if it was a real team. And I think it just kind of started the creative juices for us and helped us kind of move forward on that and remove from the numbers a little bit.
In terms of the pricing strategy, I think when we consider the comp group, by having a wider range within that comp group for how MLS teams priced, I think we were able to capture some of that dynamics. Now, as to the point about what we're comparing against in market, that's a very valid question. Since we didn't have necessarily the data to do that, we would have liked to. I think one of the key challenges and risks are if we are comparing ourselves to different franchises within the market, we're actually trying to move away from that because one, we're going to be pricing on a 12-month basis, so rather than a per game basis, which most teams currently price on. And by doing a membership that's a 12-month process, they're not going to see a single game price, at least for the season ticket memberships. The second point is on the single game pricing, yes, it's a concern and that we might be leaving money on the table if we were in, say, a bigger market. I think given where we are in the cycle, or given where our demographics are with 80,000, which is about in line with the average MLS team, we were conservative and just went with a little bit more on average MLS price, or average ticket price.
So one of the core tenets on this is you guys are coming from the USL with a pretty rabid fan base. and looking at your supporters' revenue, it's a little bit above league average. How do you guys think about making sure that you have the correct ticket utilization and the correct PR messaging out there if you've got a super organized group of fans? And I'm assuming you're going to be double, tripling their average prices there.
Yeah, and that's a really good question. I think from our perspective, when you start with a stronger fan base, you have opportunity to really bring them in as well. And so when we're starting with a stronger supporter group fan base, our idea is basically to leverage that, but really to use that to grow. And so from the perspective of your question about supporter revenue, we think about it as you essentially price it to maintain all of the USL supporters, but really try to fill that supporter section first, and then use that to kind of generate the excitement, similar to what a Seattle has done.
So then the rest of the average, if you're giving them a discount, does that mean everybody else has to go above to hit your market comps?
So I wouldn't say we were giving them a huge discount. One assumption that we've made here is that our premium pricing is significantly, basically one step above the average. So I think we can offset some of that there. I also think about that a little bit more in terms of the shorter term perspective of driving utilization there. And then as we go on, obviously supporter demand will be higher, especially in the supporter section itself. So that's somewhere where we can kind of bring that back up and level that out.
I think one other key point is that we don't want to price out our fans. That's a big concern for a lot of these MLS teams, especially the ones, I think LAFC is a good example, where they're growing really quickly and they're increasing prices quite a bit. We don't want to price our fans. I think one of the things that we can do to mitigate that is also provide other opportunities for fans to engage with the team outside of the core season ticket membership. So, for example, as we mentioned, cup games, pricing them low so we can get people into the building, still feeling that they're part of the franchise, part of the family. And if they cannot afford, obviously we want to make it, especially for supporters, in line with inflation. But if they feel like they cannot afford it, they still have the opportunity to come see their team and engage with the club in a meaningful way.
All right. So there were some really interesting ideas in here, and love the research you did. I could ask a couple questions, but one I guess I'll dig into is the subscription concept. You mentioned up front, you're going to be building a stadium. I don't know who's financing said stadium, but obviously that's going to affect the cash flows. I didn't see anything projected for the subscription, so I'm curious how that would work and how it might help you offset some of these costs.
Yeah, so specifically with the cash flow, it largely depends on the regulatory environment that we are in and which state that we're going to be based in. If we're in California, there's nowhere we're getting public funding. If we're in the Southeast, there's a good chance that we might get some public funding. So I think that's one aspect of it. Two, we want to stay away from PSLs or anything of the sort, given that it's not typically used within soccer, and it's a way to immediately attract negative attention from our fan base, which is counter to one of our key tenets to fill the building right away. In terms of the membership model, how that would work is you'd essentially be priced on a 12-month basis. And so instead of being a upfront single payment, and I think a lot of teams have this now where they do these payment plans anyway, but rather by having it as a 12-month period, we'd be able to, while we may not see the cash up front, we know it's almost a guaranteed revenue stream, and it's just really the collections that we would have to manage on the back end.
Yeah, one additional thing, I know it's small over there on the far right side, but we're also going to offer membership to people who don't want to buy tickets, so just want to be quote-unquote part of the club. And that is an additional revenue source that obviously doesn't solve necessarily the upfront cash flow problem, but just helps us from a bottom line perspective as well, that it's very low cost to add these people to the model, but also will help us generate revenue from people who maybe can't pay the hundreds of dollars for season tickets, but want to be able to have first access to go to a concert or want to be able to go to the fan fest in the off season. And I think that's an opportunity for us to just bring more money and more engagement kind of into the fold, and hopefully convert those people down the road to being actual game attendees, and kind of increase their basket size as we move along the fan life cycle.
So going back to the premium question, let's talk premium for a minute. Got a couple questions, but in interest of time, I'll keep it to one. So you've got a couple different products. They're all at fairly high price points. You want to talk through a little bit how you're conceptualizing what comes with that? You talked a little bit, there's some money that comes out for food and bev. So what comes with that ticket? How are you structuring that full premium product?
Yeah, I think to answer that question is we're trying to provide a significant amount of differentiation across all of these different options to really allow people to pick and choose, even within a certain box, which one they prefer. So that's kind of the differentiate on the club level, right? We don't have one ring where it's the same thing that's offered to different people. There's actually a couple of different price points within those club levels that people can pick and choose exactly what they're looking for. It's not all-inclusive F&B across all of these different sections. It's not all of them get complimentary parking. It's not like a set subset if once you reach the premium tier. It's kind of really allowing people, what am I willing to pay for and what do I value? Some people might not want all-inclusive F&B because they're going to go to the stadium and they're going to buy a bottle of water. So we have a premium option that suits their needs that also allows us to kind of capitalize on that willingness to pay for something else.
I think one other point is that we want to make this a family atmosphere so that everyone in the Raptor Club knows each other and engages with each other. As they build that community feeling, they're more likely to come back and engage, right? Especially one of the issues with premium is that people will buy a premium seat and not necessarily show up to the game. If you know the same people coming in and out every day, you're more likely to show up, for 18 games a season.
We got 1 minute here, but I've got a quick question. So you had a great plan for long-term success, but how do you isolate team performance from keeping the fans engaged in years 1 to 3, 4 to 6 if they win 3 to 4 games that initial season?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think one thing that we did realize is that is one of the key drivers to our ticketing and our utilization as well. I think in the near term there are a lot of different levers that we can pull around just building on some of the momentum. So one of the things that we would highly leverage is what Kyle talked about with the stadium experience itself. You can make an amazing in-stadium experience even if the on-field product maybe not quite there yet. Maybe that's building the community, maybe that's the new stadium itself and offering really interesting incentives there. And then I think at the same time, you can also create a storyline. You've seen some teams create storylines around that as well about growth going forwards, and that could be another option.
I think also making sure the fans are heard. As long as they're heard and they feel like they're involved in the club decision making, they're more likely to buy into this idea of EFC.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have the team from University of Michigan and University of Texas.
Morning, everyone. Thanks for being here this morning. My name's Rob Casper, and I'm an MBA at the University of Michigan right now. Joined with me this morning as well as Amin Rangan, also an MBA at University of Michigan, and Nick Krissa, who's studying computer science at University of Texas. In order to capitalize on the massive growth in soccer's popularity and the MLS, Mlsville FC needs to build a strategy to build long-term fan engagement. That needs to be their number one priority. And in order to do that, they need to start by building a stadium with room for growth. In order to grow that fan base and can accommodate that fan base over the long term. They also need to use that stadium to create unique, unrivaled fan experiences via various stadium offerings and different seat types. And finally, we want to create a ticket economy centered around flexibility that will enable our fans to experience the game in many different ways, no matter what ticket type they bought. And finally, we also would like to build a media strategy around fan engagement outside of the stadium and help incentivize our fans to stay engaged as well with EFC coin, which is a fan-based loyalty token. So in considering the optimal size for our stadium, we started by looking at the 9 most recent soccer-specific stadiums that have been constructed in North America. As a result, and looking at that, we noticed that 7 out of those 9 stadiums realized roughly 89% capacity on average, which tells me that if those fan bases are growing, there's going to be an upper cap on how many people can attend the games. We also then looked at, I believe 3 of them are experiencing over 100% average capacity. Means they're relying on standing room only tickets, which means they're not generating that revenue that they could if they had additional seats. All of that goes to say they need to make basically the largest stadium that they can functionally create, but still have a good fan experience. So in doing some research, we discovered that Bruce Miller, who is the architect behind 3 of those stadiums, has effectively realized that you cannot have above 25,000 seat capacity and still have the intimate, intense, energetic environment that we want our fans to experience. So 25,000 was our ultimate recommendation. Now we also recognize that with more seats comes an additional cost. So part of our goal to mitigate some of those costs are to rely on an expanded use of safe standing areas. Now safe standing areas are regions for the supporter group with basically just a railing and a reserve space and a cup holder. So that enables the fans to do their chants, their dances, but you're not actually paying, as a stadium builder, you're not paying for a physical seat to be installed. These have been very successful and embraced in Europe, and Orlando FC actually embraced that as well for their recently built stadium. We also recognize that on-the-field product may be somewhat lacking in the first couple of years, so we want to use stadium amenities to help drive those ticket sales. Again, some of those key amenities are the safe standing zones that I just explained. We also want to push low-cost concessions. It helps bring families to the arena and makes it affordable for the entire family. We've seen Atlanta United utilize this strategy effectively, and they boast some of the best attendance numbers in the entire MLS. We also want to implement mobile ordering, enabling fans to order their concessions from their seat, have it delivered to them, and to minimize the overhead that this could create, we'd eliminate the roaming vendors that are walking around carrying, warm beer and cold hot dogs, and let our fans order exactly what they want and not have to wander the concourse or stand in line. We also recognize that a key aspect of the stadium is to have a central location, making it easy for the fans to reach the game, whether it be coming from work or from home. I think a great case study in that is the fact that the Chicago Fire is transferring away from their stadium that was in the suburbs back to Soldier Field in the heart of Chicago. Now I'm going to hand it over to Amin to further talk about fan experience via different seat types.
Thanks, Rob. So in order to continue on the theme of fan engagement, with our stadium capacity, we also wanted to optimize seat types that favored and showed a preference for how fans want to experience the game. So in addition to general seating, I want to call out 3 unique seat types we're offering and how they differ from current MLS franchises in supporter seats, premium seats, and suites. So Rob mentioned having a safe standing area dedicated for our diehard supporter fan base, similar to what Orlando FC has done. But how we want to differ is we want to increase that size as well as offer it at a very competitive or even lower price than the league average of $22 per game in the season. We feel like the supporter fan base is critical to building the foundational network that we'll need to a robust and diverse fan base. In terms of the premium offerings, we found that most other MLS teams offer 3 to 4 to 5 different premium seat types in terms of dining areas, field level suites. We want to increase that to 10 plus types to increase that diversity and tailor to individualized, personalized fan experiences. So this can vary from that field level seating to being able to meet the players, potentially shoot goals in the goalpost before the game, to fine dining for maybe more family-centered fans that want that specific premium and kind of gated experience during the game. And furthermore, we don't want our fans to be rooted in one premium seat type for the entire season. We want to design a system that allows them to rotate between different premium seat types throughout the season so that they can experience it, the game from a variety of perspectives. And then finally, with our suites, we want to reward our local businesses and partners with exclusive loyalty and access to the EFC network, which we're going to get into later, and have not only that exclusive perspective of the game, but also have retractable roofs on all 30 of our suites and fluid access to lounge and restaurant areas. We plan on offering these suite tickets at a lower first season price and a exclusive 1-year contract to engage these local businesses and sponsors early. To complement these seat types, we have 6 proposed initiatives along the lines of swapping seats with fans, capturing those in-game moments with partnerships, and then introducing the first MLS fan-driven cryptocurrency. So to get into how we decided to price and project revenue for these different seat types, we looked at the maximum revenue per game in the first year of the franchise for 4 different seat types. And I'm going to walk through how we came up with this right now. So we looked at, with the data given, there was low demand franchises, medium demand franchises, and high demand franchises. We felt that the high demand franchises were typical of non-soccer specific stadiums, so franchises that also have stadiums where there's NFL teams. So we weighted what we expected from a revenue percentage towards more of the medium demand franchises. We looked at the percentage of revenue generated by the different seat sections. The second thing we did is we looked at comparable prices for these different seat categories from different MLS franchises. We then backed into the number of seats by tinkering with the number of seats at that 25,000 capacity until we reached that weighted revenue percentage that we calculated initially. And so what we got for year one at 25,000 seats is an average of $31 per seat for an expected maximum revenue per game of about $800,000. We do expect this to go up as our priority in year one is to fill seats and generate that local and strong fan base. And so this is what we feel as the floor of the franchise's maximum revenue per game. I'm going to hand it off now to Nick to talk about our ticketing strategy.
Thank you. So we're going to offer 3 different season ticket packages, the M, the L, and the S. So the M will be a full season ticket package, the L will be a half season, and the S will be a quarter season. So I just wanted to kind of give a high level of some of the highlights of our different ticket packages. So all of the ticket packages will include the first game of the season. The L and the S package, because they are smaller, you won't be guaranteed your actual seat that is that you have for the remainder of your season ticket license. What this will do is 2 main things. It'll drive an initial excitement to our club because game 1 is almost guaranteed to be a sellout with all of our season ticket holders there. It'll also make game 1 an exclusive ticket, which will generate buzz in the community. And by ensuring a positive fan experience at the first game, we'll be able to get some word of mouth advertising for people in the community who see the game on social media and stuff like that. So the other thing is with our full season ticket packages, these are going to be targeted at kind of the ends of the spectrum. So with our supporter on the cheaper end, and then also with the suites with our businesses. So our supporter tickets will only be sold as season tickets, so you'll have to purchase the entire season to be offered that competitive rate. And then we're going to be targeting businesses at the suite level who will also be signing in as full year commitments. So the other thing too is by offering these, the L and the S package opposed to only the full season, what we do is we have fans with ticket licenses that don't have all the tickets. So this will ultimately drive tickets to our ticket exchange if they want to either sell or trade the tickets of the games that they can't go to, or also buy additional games of games that they may not have been included in their ticket package. So our marketing and outreach strategy for selling these packages is in our inaugural season, we're going to try to maximize the sale of season tickets. An overarching theme in our strategy is to develop a sense of community, and there's no better way to do that than through season ticket holders. Another positive of this is it'll allow us to gauge It'll allow us to gauge how many single game tickets we'll need to sell throughout the year so we can start developing pricing strategies as the season tickets are getting sold. We want to align ourselves with popular fan brands within MLS, and then we also really would like to strive to partner with a brand that's kind of embodies MLSville and is a local company. Like I mentioned earlier, and like Ahmed mentioned, we're going to be offering these season-long suites for businesses on a one-year basis instead of the current and standard 3-year contract. This will allow businesses in a community to get involved early on and not feel committed to their sponsorship. We want to have a dedicated and diverse social media presence, so we are going to target Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. This will allow us to post pictures and videos showing off our new stadium and also the fan experience that we're providing. And then finally, we're going to offer MLS Coin, which Ahmed is about to talk about here again in a second, for downloading our exchange app early on in the process, and even before fans have purchased season tickets. This will allow us to deliver our promotional messages to them to try to increase future sales.
So one of our recommendations is to introduce EFC Coin, the first MLS fan token that is integrated in the broader Socios network. So what Socios is, it's a fan voting token that fans can buy and acquire in order to have voting power on club decisions. Right now, the PSG, Juventus, and FC Barcelona are members of this network, and so we believe we can be a pioneer in the MLS by being the first team to offer this. And so what we're envisioning is that fans can acquire tokens through an initial fan token offering as seen here on the right, or through acquiring the equivalent of loyalty points by attending games, by attending meet and greet events, by purchasing merchandise. And then these tokens can then be funneled back into the MLSville economy by being able to purchase tickets, meet and greet players, attend non-soccer events in the stadium. We believe that this quantifies and almost pseudo-gamifies the fan experience and will create a level of excitement of tracking points, tracking currency, similar to how people get excited about their Starbucks loyalty points or their credit card points. And it also allows us as a franchise to recognize some of our top fans in a quantitative measure. Where these fans are going to transact and engage with their EFC coin is going to be on a proprietary internal exchange. That's going to be not only secure, but efficient and getting away from the secondary ticket marketplaces where fans commonly pay high transaction fees. So in addition to eliminating these transaction fees, we also want, as a franchise, to assist our fans in all the activities they want to engage in. So primarily we were thinking of ticket resellers and providing them intelligent information on the demand and price averages for the tickets that are selling in the market. We compared it to sort of like an Amazon marketplace or an eBay that provides its users and sellers with competitive price information so that they can optimize the revenue they're generating on these resellers. We talked to people who worked at MLS, and we found that one of the biggest things is people buy season tickets to resell them. And so we want to facilitate that through our internal exchange. So this exchange not only will not only accept EFC, we understand that not all users will buy into this, the coin backed by a cryptocurrency. It's also going to have, your common currency is US dollars, obviously, but we feel that having an exchange that supports a new type of currency will increase engagement and excitement in the first few years. I'm going to hand it off now to Rob to talk about our media strategy.
So essential to our whole thesis is fan engagement both in stadium and out. And what are the best way to do that is make sure every fan can watch every game, see every highlight that they want, and engage on multiple platforms. Now, one of the key things we found in looking at how current MLS fans are getting their content is it's decreasingly on streaming, which is very counterintuitive understanding the demographics that follow the MLS and understanding that we are operating in an economy that's frequently cord cutting, And we recognize that we need to reverse this trend in order to best engage our fans. And so even though the MLS has engaged nationwide partners, we need to start considering this on a more of a local basis. So what we want to do is focus on a low cost or free option for fans to stream every game locally. We see this happening in a couple different means. One, it could be a YouTube TV or a Hulu Plus, as evidenced by Chicago Fire. We could also look to partner with like the local NBC affiliate, who all have streaming options that frequently require, say, a cable login, but you could partner with them to have that waived for in-market streaming games. And then if, for any stopgaps, we would rely on Twitter or Facebook Live to make sure every game is broadcast again, free or at little to no charge. As you generate more viewership via these free streaming options, you can then start to make sure you have a good local broadcast option, and that's going to be able to increase the amount of revenue you can generate from selling your media rights. And finally, you will continue to partner with the existing national coverage that the MLS provides, ESPN, Fox Sports, and Univision, and then also ESPN Plus for the out-of-market streaming options. And I'll hand it over to for Nick now for some final thoughts.
Thank you. Yeah, so what are the next steps for MLSville? As we come farther and farther along in the process, more data is going to become available to us, so this will allow us to increase the effectiveness of our models and be able to better simulate ticket sales, attendance, and revenue. We need to develop MLS Coin with our partnership, and we also need to develop the ticket exchange that we want our fans to be able, for fans to be able to spend their MLS Coin currency. And then we also need to begin our marketing and outreach programs to find the corporate sponsors that we're looking for. And then finally, we want to formalize our budget and revenue statements over the next 3 years. So I hope you enjoyed our presentation today on MLS's newest expansion team, Mlsville FC. Through putting the fan experience at the forefront of everything we do, we're able to connect with our fan base, personalize our fans' experience, and overall build a community around MLSville. Thank you.
So with encouraging all of the free access to view the team from home, are you worried that could potentially prevent fans from engaging with the product in person?
So I think the best parallel that we could find to show evidence of that keeping fans engaged home and away is the Chicago Blackhawks before Rocky Wirtz became the owner. Bill Wirtz used to black out the games in the local market, and it killed engagement, it killed attendance. And then since Rocky became the owner, he sold the media rights. Fans started turning around. Obviously, the on-ice product dramatically improved, but they now annually boast some of the best attendance numbers in the league.
Thank you. I went early on. I don't want to steal your questions again.
No, I ask a question.
I've got a different one.
Okay.
Different tax.
Thinking through this, I think introducing like a cryptocurrency is innovative and a good way to draw people to engage. Although, how do you guys think if it takes off more than expected? How do you guys make sure that you stay solvent and can pay for all of your overhead costs? And how do you work that revenue into your projection? So the MLS salary cap, if it's a portion of all revenues coming in, how do you handle that when your valuation of what your tickets are always changing?
Yeah, so one of the, and what you're getting at, one of the broader considerations is we're now managing A currency where now it creates a local economy, and we do have to deal with some of the things you mentioned. We do want to start by consulting some of the other clubs that are using it today and see how they've dealt with it. We'll probably obviously want to bring in experts. But while we do see the market value, I suppose, of the cryptocurrency-backed token fluctuating, we're relying on quick expenditure and quick turnaround of this currency and constant fluctuation in that exchange in order to keep that price stable. To answer your second question on how do we account for this from a revenue perspective and the MLS salary cap, we're thinking that this is going to be a one-time offering and a one-time revenue increase for us at the inception of the franchise, and not something we'll have to account for on an ongoing basis.
So to follow on there, if you've got people who are able to exchange their tickets in for MLS coin and then use MLS coin for food and bev in the stadium, are you not kind of stealing from your ticketing revenue bucket to fund food and beverage and therefore potentially driving down your overall revenue opportunity?
Sure. So one thing we definitely need to think through, but I think if we're selling the tickets initially to our fans and then they're reselling it for MLS coins, we've already received kind of the revenue and the value associated with that ticket. So if that value is being converted for then other things, obviously maybe we're losing out on some in-game sales, but we realize that value is just being flown, it flows back into the ecosystem.
What is your ticketing product strategy? You've mentioned you want to maximize the season ticket sales, and then whatever is remaining, you want to sell singles. What is the proportion of the season ticket or the multi-product package are you guys thinking?
Yeah, well, it's hard to say because you never know how many season ticket packages that you're actually going to be able to sell. But once we have an idea of how many ticket packages we have sold prior to the season, we can start offering those those single game tickets, and we'll be able to get a sense of which games we need to sell more of and which games we need to sell less of. So we can start, offering promotional offers to the fans that already have our app for single game ticket purchases on those games where it's looking like we're not going to be able to fill the stadium, or we can expect a decrease in attendance across what our mean attendance would be across the season.
So you guys wouldn't have a goal in terms of what that is going to look like at the start of the season, like how many season tickets we're going to sell, how many half season that we're going to target. You wouldn't have a goal around that.
Yeah, well, the goal is for the full season that we want to sell all of our supporter tickets as season tickets, and then we want to lock down all of our suites as season tickets as well. And then what we want to leave it up to the fans on how they want to interact with our ticket packaging, and then that will allow us in future seasons to see kind of the market that we're dealing with and be able to pick. Maybe we only want to offer quarter seasons in the future or something like that.
So if you were able to sell full 25,000 seats as a season ticket, would you sell as a season ticket?
Well, that's the whole point of having our ticket exchange, right? Is now you're not going to be able to offer single game tickets, but when you have people reselling their season tickets in your ticketing platform and using your currency, you're able to still have a hand in the market of single game tickets.
But you would come across the same issue that he mentioned, where you're kind of cannibalizing your own revenue opportunities there.
Yeah. So I think if we had the opportunity, it's something we need to investigate further. I think if we had the opportunity to sell 25,000, we would consider it, but then we would run the risk of lower average per ticket revenue. So I think it's as a next step running a sensitivity analysis and seeing how many are we going to offer right out the gate, in addition to the supporter and suites being 100% offering versus the premium and the general seating. I think it's something we need to play around with the numbers and come up with the optimal mix for our initial offering.
There's a lot of things I liked about the idea, right? Like, so the design of fluid and diverse seat types, we didn't really get into that. And there's this sort of, so you guys, I don't know the mechanics of how the coin really would work and how you would on transactions get the equity back in or out in the cash flow piece. I don't really know how that would work, but you've basically made a market for seats is what your idea is. What I was thinking about is you're trying to give the customer flexibility, but you're also exposing a ton of your value to the secondary market. So if we thought about just the diversified seat type perk, right? You've bought season tickets and now I have the ability to kind of move around the stadium, move into different seat types. I'd like to know a little bit more about how that would work, and if it weren't about a coin, like what other things you could do to enable that.
Sure. So to answer your first question, we were thinking from our own individual fan experiences and how we view games. Typically when, a lot of these suites and premium experiences, you're going to the same suite, you're going to the same, field level seating, you're seeing the same people. It's very singular, and we felt that we compared it to the supporter fan experience, and a lot of these premium guys, they don't have the chance to even experience that. So figuring out a way to incentivize that, and even rewarding coins for, hey, do you want to swap with a single supporter fan ticket? We know you're taking a huge hit on like what your ticket is worth versus what their ticket is worth, but maybe rewarding them for making that switch and allowing a supporter to experience a sweep. That was the fan swap we talked about here. In terms of finding other ways outside of the coin.
If you didn't have a coin offering, could you still do this?
Yeah, I think so. So the cryptocurrency was a suggestion. I think a similar method we could use is some sort of loyalty points or some sort of, in-kind trade, where if you're doing that fan swap and you're diminishing your ticket value, maybe you're getting something in return. Maybe you get exclusive access to next year's tickets, first pick at next year's tickets. Maybe you get to meet with some of the star players, things like that. So I think we could find a way to balance the scales independent of the coin.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good. I think the coin might be so much harder to execute than something that fans might really value.
Sure,
it's a good idea.
Sure.
You guys have a lot of ideas in here to lower the price that the fan. So lower ticket prices. What was it? Free streaming, no ticket fees, things like that. What levers are left if you start coming in low on some of your projections to drive more revenue?
Sure. I did. Sure. So I think what we focused on is we found some research that indicated that a lot of the smaller market teams are they're losing money, they're not profitable, they have to deal with local broadcasting rights where they're not really generating any revenue. It's more of a sunk cost. So we wanted to focus on not necessarily being profitable in the first few years, but developing that local fan base that we feel is like more of a long-term investment, because we see a few factors working in our favor there. The MLS is growing incredibly fast. Sports franchises are increasing valuation significantly every year. So we didn't want to worry about the financials and kind of sacrifice selling tickets and generating that fan, and that showing that we want fans, not that we want their money. And that was kind of our strategy for the first few years. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Unfortunately, winners will not be announced until tomorrow night during the Alpha Awards presentation. But thank you all, and judges, if you can stick around for just a little bit to follow up. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the conference.